So welcome back to the second part of our work on this cat portrait, and today you can see we've completed the ears, some of the background, and now today I'm going to fill in a little bit more of the face and then work on the eye. So filling in the background, much more speeded up of course than usual, because we don't want to be worrying about having to do the work on the left hand side after we've done our eye because of fear of smudging. So I'm using the soft pastels, the pencils, to work around the eye, bring the body detail down, and now we can start the eye. So I'm starting with the outline and with the very black soft pencil in between my drawing lines, which will give me the top of that eye, the nice dark shades that we need to start working beneath. It's good to see where we're actually working, so adding those dark lines in to start with gives us help. And then we can start working in with a sort of tawny colour. This cat's eyes in the photograph are actually very tawny yellow gold colour rather than very, very green. So we're using lots of different shades of warm ochres, yellow ochres, soft sort of burnt sienna, all those sorts of shades with a little bit of very, very pale green just to add the detail. So we start working in that top corner, working as much as possible with a good point on the pencils. This is a lovely Derwent one, which is the ochre colour I mentioned. It's a really, really nice soft goldish yellow colour, perfect for these eyes. So bringing the colour all the way down and round, you can see where we've got little white markings where light actually falls, so I highlight those again with the pale green, and again round the top of the eye. And then there are a few little markings in the eye which are pale, so I put those into place just so that I know where they're going to be. And then a question of blending those colours down, softening a little bit darker there, that will be the burnt sienna shade, working right up to the top of the eye under the dark part, which is where the shadow is going to be, because the eye is not in full light, so it's quite dark under there. We'll work on that as it goes along. And I'm bringing that darker colour around the outside. Mostly the paler colours are in the centre, apart from the pupil itself, and then the rest work to very darker shades around the outside. Little bits of flickers of colour within the eye itself, and you really need to look at your reference photograph to see exactly where those specks of colour actually lie. And we're getting a nice shape now to that eye with the darker tones. You can see how it's really adding depth. Back in with that lovely, lovely ochre. Really picking up the light in that eye now, giving it shade. A little bit of white. This is a Caran white pencil, which I found to be the softest, but actually the easiest to also get to a point. It makes the lines a lot easier than perhaps the Pitt pencils. And again with the very pale green, it's almost a whitish green in the Derwent shades. Very dark green just towards the centre of the eye. Because we've put the paler colour down first, putting a darker green on the top will actually lighten it, as we have done with the ear. So it's worth remembering, if you want a slightly lighter shade of that pencil, put a light colour first and then put the dark over the top and blend it. Now the outside of the pupil is very, very pale, so I've put that in there as well. Checking your reference all the time to make sure that you've got the right shades going on in the right places. And soft circular motions just to blend those colours together. The warm ochre colour again. You see how the green is mixed in very nicely. It doesn't stand out as being green in all the sort of golden colours. This is actually a marigold yellow pencil that I've just used there, but I'm using the burnt sienna colour on the top just to soften it in so it doesn't look too stark, too bright. You're going to get really darker browns coming in now. And there's almost a sort of sepia colour along that edge. Again, a little bit of white in there. Put those markings back in. And keep building your layers. Your pastel mat paper, which this is done on, will take a good amount of layers of pastel. You'll find it very useful to work on, better than a lot of papers which will only take 2, maybe 3 layers before it won't actually accept any more colour. Now I'm just putting a little bit of the dark colour in the pupil, just at the bottom, and we'll make sure that we keep the shape that we want as well. It will actually be darker at the top of the pupil because that's nearer to the shadow of the eyelid itself. So you need to perhaps remember that the darker shade will be at the top, and you can actually afford to use a sort of paler grey at the bottom, but still giving a good outline to the pupil. It really brings it alive now and makes it look much more like a cat's eye. A little bit of white just to soften that lower colour, which we can blend in. Again, this is the Caran pencil. Really nice, soft yet powerful white. It's a time-consuming job just to keep that blending going, but it's so much worth it than just putting one solid colour. You'll find you get a lot more depth in the eye. The round shape of the eye is important to remember. Eyes are not flat. You need to make sure that you've got lines and colours that signify that roundness, especially for a cat's eye, which is so expressive. And we can just keep adding detail, sharpness, colour, blending. Keep looking at your reference. The best tool that you have are your eyes. They really need to actually look and observe what is going on. Sometimes we look at stuff and we think we see it, but we don't. We're just looking on the surface. This is a good exercise in really looking at every little detail. That's what counts with the portrait. It's the detail that you manage to put in. Moving down into the corner of the eye now. It's a sort of minky grey brown colour. Not completely black, it works into that dark brown. I think this is brown earth with Derwent pencils. It's a very nice warm brown colour. There is also a chocolate colour which is also very good. It's not quite as sort of black as black, but it gives that depth of colour. Again, we're just bringing the colour. Now you'll see that using a lighter pencil over a darker makes it slightly darker. Now we've got a nice bit of black going on in there. The eyes look really strange until we start to put the black lines around them. Then they actually become part of the face. So they do tend to stand out, and you think you've perhaps done a little bit too much colour and a little bit too bold shapes, but once the face is done and it's black, it will actually go in very nicely. A little bit of grey, soft grey, bluish grey around the eyelids where the soft moisture of the rim of the eye just shines a little bit of light back. It's not white, it is a soft grey colour. It takes the starkness of that white away. Again, refer to your photograph. If there is a strong white line going through that lid, then use that. Nice bit of black there just to give that depth under the eyeball itself, with the curve of the ball, the orb of the eye shape. bringing that down. And now you can put that line under that white if you want to. I've lost that little bit of a line there that I wanted to keep, so we can just go back in and add a little bit more white. You can see I've used a lot of that pencil. There's not an awful lot left. I do have a replacement, but I will get another one because I know it's a pencil that I use a lot, especially for portraits. You can see now how the shadow under the eyelid really works when you put the pale colours of the fur above it. Just look like the eye is now underneath that eyelid. A little bit of softness around the corner of the eye, the inner corner. Just keeping on blending. This is a much darker brown. Nice and warm though. Bringing that detail into the corner of the eye. Actually a slightly pinky brown, this one, which gives that impression of the flesh inside the eye. I'm starting to add the dark on the top now, gives that context. So as you can see, just working beneath it, adding little bits of the dark black in, and again a few little bits of white where the light hits the eyelid at the bottom. A very good tip is to actually use your phone to take a photograph and see if there's any bits that you feel need a little bit more colour, because the camera actually squashes the image down and makes it much easier to see. And when you're in the detail like we are with something like this, it's quite hard to stand back and look at it. Another way is to actually just leave it alone overnight, turn it away from yourself, even for a couple of days if you're finding it hard, and just give your eyes a break from it. These are just final details. You probably keep coming back and adding little bits as you sort of continue, especially when you do the other eye, because you want them to balance and work similarly, although on this portrait one eye is much more in the light than the other. This eye is the darker of the two. A little bit of dark grey there just around the pupil. But I'm quite happy with this now. I hope that that's given you a little bit more insight. Please don't forget, if you'd like to see more of my work or you want to be alerted to the next videos, to hit the subscribe. Thank you for watching. See you next time.